Thank you, Alicia. Coach, thank you for joining us today. We recently received an email from the WNBA saying that 42% of general managers called the New York Liberty the most improved team this year, with 50% saying you guys, quote unquote, won free agency a little bit. So so that means there's going to be expectations on this team. Have you guys dealt with that at all? And, have you addressed the team with that, like how you deal with increased expectations going into a very interesting season?
No, I think you guys have heard me say this a few times. It's not really what we're focused on. I mean, that's not a controllable. What other people say and think isn't a controllable, and we're really focused on the things that we can control on a day-to-day basis. And so, as far as that's very kind of them to say. I know that there's always angling too as to why you would say a given team had a good off season or so on and so forth. I mean, I just don't put too much stock into stuff like that. And as far as expectations, I don't know how we could be the most improved team when we haven't played a game. We have a lot to prove to ourselves in terms of our capacity now to apply what we've been working on the last couple of weeks in game situations. So I think you're gonna hear me as a broken record all year talk about focusing on our day-to-day and on our controllables. And like I said, that's probably one you won't hear me too often acknowledge expectations as being something that we're focused on here.
Totally fair. And as training camp winds down to an end, where do you think the team has improved most from day one? Have they bought into your defensive focus, for example?
Yeah, no question. It's buy-in has not been an issue. Execution is something that takes experience and reps and time. And I think that the biggest part of knowing you can get there is having that buy-in. And I think that that's been uniform all of training camp. We've got a group that really enjoys one another, wants to improve, and really wants to kind of execute the vision that we have for this roster. And so now, it's just a matter of seeing how well we can do that and how quickly we can do that. I don't think it's a matter of if, it's really a matter of when. And, that's something that, again, it goes back to expectations are really tough because, when this team gels and when this team has had time to learn one another and play together, yeah, I think we're going to be pretty good. But, it's really hard to say how long it's going to take for that to happen. It could happen the first game, and it could take a little bit.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Jonathan Lehman.
Hi, Jonathan Lehman with the New York Post. I wanted to ask you, you were hired almost a year and a half ago, and it was going to be the start of moving into a new home, start of a new era of Liberty basketball, and there was really a pin put in that. Now that we are a day before your first true home game, I wanted to hear your thoughts on whether the delay has made that any sweeter, and just your kind of approach to finally kind of launching this Barclays Center era of the New York Liberty.
Yeah, it's hard for me to comment on it because I'm so mired in the nuances of the day-to-day preparation and kind of what we need to do. I haven't taken as much time as I probably would like to really sit down and take in some of those aspects of getting to open up in Barclays. I think that it'll set in when we walk out of the tunnel. Before the game is when it'll really hit me, and I'll get to have those first few steps of this is really exciting, this is really cool. But for the most part, it's just about preparation. It's just about making sure that I'm not missing anything in terms of what this team needs, what this staff needs. So, I wish I had more to say on that, but I think that's going to be something that I kind of take in for as long as I can, and then it's right back to business.
Thank you.
Jackie Powell. Hey, Coach. Good to see you. So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the COVID protocols and the vaccinations. So, I've spoken to a couple of players who have said that they've expressed that they're waiting for their second shot. But I just wanted to know where the Liberty as a team are when it comes to folks getting vaccinated. And also, I wanted to know or get confirmed what the protocols are for when the folks come in from overseas. Like I saw on Instagram, Kia Stokes got in. What's sort of the timeline for when they can join you guys?
It varies based on if they're vaccinated, where they are in the vaccination process. Um, there's it's a pretty nuanced answer. I think one that Jonathan's probably better suited
Mm,
for.
okay.
He's he knows the ins and outs a little bit better. As far as our team, I know that we have almost everybody either vaccinated or in the process of being vaccinated, where they've gotten their first shot. Um, I'm pretty sure uniformly we have that. I know the staff is entirely vaccinated, and as had the post shot time to be fully vaccinated. So, but yeah, as far as the day to day, I know that there's a 2-day rule for people who have been vaccinated in terms of when they come back and needing to have 2 consecutive negative tests, and then I know that there's a 6-day rule for people who are not vaccinated. Um, but I'm pretty sure there's some other little nuances in there that I'm leaving out, and that's why I'm being careful. I know the basics, I know enough, but I'm sure there's stuff I don't know.
I appreciate that. And if I could follow up, with waiving Joyner yesterday, how concerned are you all about the depth in the post, especially because you don't have Natasha, and Kia's going to take some time through the protocol.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations about the timing of when and how um, and who in the waiver process. We do have the capacity to bring in hardship players, and there's that's a longer conversation as to um, the rules that all surround that. It's pretty complex. There's a dance that we have to do with salary cap, roster spots, hardship, players coming back from overseas, COVID protocols. Um, I can assure you guys that was not an easy thing to do. Joyner had a really, really good camp. And I think that it's a matter of time before she's either back with us or she gets picked up full time on another roster, because she's definitely good enough to be a WNBA player. And I'll say that there are a lot of factors that people might not be aware of in terms of, like I said, the dance that we have to do with all of those different concepts that I just alluded to, that made the timing a necessity rather than even an option.
Thanks so much, Coach. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Miles Ehrlich.
Hey, Coach. Yesterday, the team put Aisha Durr on the full suspension list with her long haul COVID complications. Have you spoken to her recently, or has she been in the facility at all? And has she been making steady improvement? I also do want to qualify this, because if you don't want to discuss Aisha's recovery, because this is her story to tell, I totally get that and respect that, and we can move on to something else.
Yeah, I appreciate the caveat. I'll address the basics of kind of where we're at. I completely agree that her journey to health is really her story to tell. I completely agree with that. As far as us in this year, it's really just a matter of she's not going to be reporting this year. We're most concerned with her doing everything necessary to get healthy and to feel good again. And then the hope is that next season she's good and she's feeling good and ready to go, and she's here in New York with us.
Great, thank you very much. And also, we've asked a lot of players throughout camp about their comfort level adjusting to Brooklyn, but we've hammered you with logistics questions like this. How have you been settling into New York, and have you gotten to explore the city at all?
I appreciate that. As you can imagine, I haven't really, because of COVID protocols, and there's always the possibility that you could be a silent carrier, even though you're vaccinated. And I think that we're still waiting on the science for that. And so as long as we're waiting, I'm kind of trying to play it safe and make sure that I'm not a risk to expose people, even though I'm fully vaccinated. So unfortunately, I've been pretty much locked down at the apartment, but the little bits that I've gotten to experience have been via DoorDash, and I've done a lot of door dashing, more than I probably should. And so, my New York experience has really been relegated to takeout or delivery, rather, restaurant food.
Great. Thanks so much, Coach. We'll have to get you on one of those commercials with Shanae.
Appreciate it.
Danny Barlabi.
Hi, Coach. This is kind of building off of what Jackie, I believe, was asking before. But in terms of the situation with the front court, I was wondering specifically how you're all preparing for matching up with Indiana's front court in those first two games.
Yeah, we've got, like I said, in terms of the hardship, we have some help coming in, waiting in the wings to help us with that specific problem. As far as the matchups, this is really going to be a fun test, because they have to match up with us, right? It's not just about us having to match up with them. And so the way that we're built is going to compromise what they do. In the same way that the way they're built compromises what we do. And so it's going to be a matter of who executes better in terms of, really playing to their identity. And it's not necessarily the end game. In fact, I think everyone would agree that, if certain things don't go well, that's just us going back to the drawing board and addressing it and seeing different ways, creative ways. But I think for the most part, we're excited about what those matchups look like on our end. So that's the thing that I think often gets lost. And, when you're the team that's going a little smaller, everyone says, what are you going to do about the post? And I don't think enough people say, well, how is that person going to guard this explosive wing on the perimeter? So I think that's something that both sides are thinking about a lot.
Thanks so much.
Got it.
Karina Mustafa.
Hi, Coach. Krina from Venus Sports. Didi was telling us last week that there's hot dog stands on every corner, so hopefully you'll get to experience some of that when you can. But my question was about Natasha Howard and how you plan to incorporate her into the lineup when she's back, especially since she hasn't really been able to participate in training camps since she's been overseas.
Yeah, we would love to have Tosh. It would be really nice. She's a game changer on both ends. And, the incorporation, I think, will be relatively easy, because we don't intentionally, we've tried to scale what we've put in and when we've put it in, based on the fact that we do have, unfortunately, 3 or 4 of our mainstay players coming in late, some coming in, extremely late, where they won't get any training camp or any time with us prior to games. So, it's going to be a case of us trying to catch her up. We're already trying right now, using Just Play, having her familiar with diagrams and things like that of what we're doing. But really, it's going to be a matter of her finding chemistry with her teammates and them finding chemistry with her. And again, there's really no way to do that besides getting on the court together. And, they're going to get thrown right out into the fire. Shouldn't be any misconception about if Natasha Howard's going to start when she gets here. She is. So it's really just a matter of, how she's feeling body wise. If that starting happens right away, she's got to be healthy and feeling good. And if she needs a little bit of extra rest coming off of a long overseas season, then by all means, we're going to take care of that. But, as soon as she's ready to go, which I think she will be pretty quickly, we want to get her out there.
Good. Thank you.
Got it.
We're going to take one more. Danny Thompson.
Coach Danny Thompson with the 3-point conversion. Great to see you as always. Kind of piggybacking off Jackie's question a bit. How hard is it to make these final cuts, knowing that you have players that are not available to start the season, like you said, mentioned Natasha and Kia? How hard is it to make those final cuts? And I don't want to get you in trouble, but is it difficult to put a roster together knowing that you don't have certain players until X date when you start the whole process?
Yeah. The cuts suck, to put it simply and colloquially. They suck. these players, we did not have one player come into this training camp with a negative attitude or, any semblance of laziness or lack of buy-in. Everyone at training camp was fantastic, and every cut is not something we look forward to. So, to answer that first part of the question, it's really one of the worst parts of the year, because they've just left it all out on the floor. So, as far as the second part, yeah, it's very challenging to not have the full roster, primarily because they don't get to play with one another, and the way that you start off the season, I don't tend to put as much stock into it, because I know that sometimes things take time. Some of the best teams ever, have gotten off to slow starts, and some teams that end up not making the playoffs or, get knocked out in the first round start off 8-0. So it's really about where you end up and not where you start. But that said, I know that a lot of people do put a lot of stock into how the season starts. And I know that, coming off of a 2-win season last year, that there's going to be a lot of hope that, we get out the gates, all pistons firing. And that's a hard thing to do, coming where we have 3 or 4 extremely important players to our team who haven't been here at all yet. And that's just, the reality of things. And there are some teams in the W who are struggling with the same thing. There are other teams who have been very fortunate. They've had their entire group pretty much for all of training camp. And I don't think it's going to be a coincidence that we'll see those teams get out to a fast start. But it's also not to make excuses. And it's also not to say that our team can't come out and be extremely effective early on. I do think they're prepared. I do think they're going to play extremely hard. I feel like we're in a really good place entering the first game. But yeah, those caveats are, it would be disingenuous and short-sighted to not acknowledge them.
Great, thank you, Coach. Next up, we're going to have Sabrina Ionescu. Let's give her a moment to get into the room. Just a reminder to please raise your hands.